We all want to talk about patterning whitetails, okay? First off, I want to just take a second to actually describe what I see as patterning whitetails, because frankly, I think the overwhelming majority of it is BS. There's been one buck, I've hunted since I was 10 years old. There's been one buck that whole time that I actually believed I knew where he bedded the overwhelming majority of the time. I believed I knew which bed he was going to select based on the wind, and I believe I knew which farm fields this buck would be hitting based on the wind, and I thought I even knew how he was getting to and from. I can't swear I was right about all that because I killed him on the very first sit. Okay, that's one deer out of all the deer I've ever hunted that I actually had down, that I believed I had down to that extent. That said, I can tell you that I've done a lot of consulting for outfitters over the years. And I can tell you in no uncertain terms that a whole bunch of bucks that you've been told on television that they spent this much time scouting and doing this and doing that, figuring, no, The outfitter told them to climb up in that tree, showed them pictures and said, here are the bucks you might see there. They shot one of them, was able to recover them, and next thing you know, they knew everything there was to know about that buck. It ain't even a 200-inch buck that was killed on TV. I happen to know that the entire patterning story is baloney for a fact. Most of these hunters are talking about how tightly they are patterning these deer. It is not true. In my opinion, you are darn lucky if you can pick out one or more traits that he tends to do, particularly during daylight. Because if it's not during daylight, it doesn't do you much good hunting. But if you can pick up one or two traits that he tends to do during daylight, that's actually patterning a deer. Okay. The overwhelming majority of times you're told it's so much more, it's not. They're feeding you a line of baloney to make themselves look really, really, really smart. But as my mommy told me years and years ago when I was growing up, if you got to jump up and down, wave your arms above your heads and scream, hey, look at me, this is who I am, these are the great things I do, guess what, you ain't. Because you don't have to jump up and down, wave your arms and scream, making yourself look like an idiot to tell these people who you are. They already know. Okay, if you really are that great. Patterning whitetails is nowhere near as thorough of an endeavor as it's made to sound over and over and over again by us experts. What it is finding that one or two kinks, things that he tends to do during legal shooting light. And we're talking tendencies. That means that there's going to be all sorts of times where that animal does not do that. That, in my opinion, is patterning a whitetail.
Final thoughts, brought to you by Huntworth.
There are all sorts of wild claims about patterning whitetails. Okay. I happen to know for a fact that the overwhelming majority of them are just plain baloney. There's virtually no truth to it whatsoever. I could give you, without exaggeration, 50 examples without trying that are on TV as bucks that were pattern cold that these hunters had never seen before in their lives. Okay. On picture, by eyesight, or any other way, they've never seen their sign. Patterning a whitetail really is nothing more, in my experience, than finding one or two things that he tends to do during legal shooting light. There's going to be all sorts of times that they do not do it. Okay. But that is patterning whitetails. And just as a little bonus at the end here, everybody talks about how you can't pattern whitetails during the rut, bucks during the baloney. Quite honestly, that's one of the easiest times to pattern a buck in my experience. What's that buck doing? He's searching for does. If I know where the does are during the various times of the day, well, if I can figure out the ones he's checking, I just nailed his pattern. Okay. And that actually, in my experience, is much easier to do on a whole bunch of bucks than figure out where he's bedding, figuring out how he's going to feed, what are all his various food sources, what are all his various water sources, what are all his various travel corridors, what are all of his various daylight core areas, bedding areas. Good luck. If you can pull that off consistently, you're a heck of a lot better hunter than I am, and That is distinctly possible. But I can tell you the overwhelming majority of deer that you see on TV that are patterned baloney find one kink. You find that one kink and now you're in the game and you stand a chance.